Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Monday, the 23rd of September 2024, and you're watching Morning Brew on Politics Social. I'm Graham Hughes. I'm at the Labour Party conference. These people are just... They're just very still. They're just not moving anywhere. Hello to everyone in the chat. How are you all doing this rather grey, dreary and overcast morning? We've got Hornet in there. We've got Siskin Edge. We've got Regan Elite. We've got Captain Bart Roberts and Jan Wallace and Diz. A bunch of others. If you would like to join them and me in the chat, therefore, just all you need to do is subscribe to the channel. Just hit the subscribe button and there you go. Massive subscribe button. And wait for 30 seconds and then you should be able to write what you like. But please be respectful and don't be a troll or we'll kick you off. So we're going to be talking about the Labour Party conference. I'm here with Femi today. He's... I don't know where he is, but he might be joining us in the show later. I hope he does. But he couldn't get into the conference yesterday. First of all, Femi joined the Labour Party back in 2020 and voted for Keir Starmer to be leader. And then a couple of months later, he was kicked out because he had put on Twitter that he was going to, tactically vote, encourage tactical voting, encourage PR, and that would help the Lib Dems and the Greens. And the Labour people were like, oh, no, you can't say you're going to help the Lib Dems and the Greens. So they kicked him out of the party, which is, okay, whatever. Anyway, so he tried to get a press pass, right? Because he's written over 100 articles for the Independent and the Guardian and all that lot. And yesterday they were like, no, you can't come in. I said, why not? He says, oh, we reserve the right to not allow people in. Anyway, so looking dapper. Thank you very much, Shin Z. That's very kind of you. We've got Leanne Scott saying, good day. Only overcast here in says Liebchen. Looking sharp, great. Thank you, Patrick McCarthy. Don't forget to scream Putler's Brexit during Reeves' speech. Okay, Vendetta, I will do that. One of the issues that we're seeing at conferences, it's a bit of a weird thing because last year, right, this was the vibes I got. Last year seemed more joyous because we knew the Tories were on the way out. We knew that this would probably be the last the last conference before the general election, which Labour were pretty much guaranteed to win. So much so that I actually saw Wes Streeting and Jonathan Ashworth in the Pullman hotel lobby at the end of last year's conference. And I had a little chat with them, and at the end they said, oh, well, next year you guys are going to be in government. And they said, don't jinx it. Jonathan Ashworth lost his seat. I feel like I jinxed it. Anyway. So last year was really kind of like this. There was a note of caution, but also there was this underlying feeling of, oh my God, finally the Tories are going to be out. We're finally going to be free of the Conservative Party in government. This year, I've got to say, there is a lot of positivity. It's nice to see ministers, secretaries of state, MPs going, yay, we're in power now, we beat the Tories. But at the same time, because of certain decisions taken by Labour in the last couple of months, the big one being the winter fuel allowance, it's kind of a bit overshadowed it. It's kind of tainted because you're meeting people and you're chatting to people who are Labour supporters or even Labour MPs or councillors, and they're like, yeah, it's all going really great. And you go, well, what about the winter fuel allowance? The threshold's quite low. Why don't you put it up to 15,000 or higher? And they go, oh, well, And you're like, but this has sort of become the flagship policy of this new Labour government. Is this going to be their equivalent to tuition fees? So, I know there's a lot of whippersnappers watch this, so you might not be able to cast your mind back as far as this. But for those of us who voted in the 1997 election, yes, I'm that old, we will remember that Labour did not put in their manifesto that they were going to introduce tuition fees at university. They did not say they were going to introduce tuition fees. In fact, earlier that year, in the February of that year, Tony Blair explicitly ruled out bringing in tuition fees. And yet a few months into government, they went, oh, we're going to have to bring in tuition fees. And when asked why, they went, because there's no money. because of 18 years of Tory government, there's no money left, and so we're going to have to bring in tuition fees. And that government was always associated, also with Iraq, obviously. But, you know, you talk to people like the Labour betrayal. It started with tuition fees. And then in the 2001 election, they were like, we're definitely not going to raise tuition fees because they were £1,000. No, we're definitely not going to raise them. We're not going to raise those tuition fees. And then after the election, they went, oh, sorry, we're going to have to raise the tuition fees. Yeah, and they raised them to £3,000. So this is, yeah, it's not a great foot to get off on. I think that the strategy behind it, as we've spoken about before, is to get all the bad shit out the way first and then work on the good shit. However, first impressions matter. Like, they really do. In the week that Labour won the election, they got rid of the effective ban on onshore wind farms. We used to have a situation in this country for about 8 years that the Tories set up that if one person, one lone fool on a hill, complained about a wind turbine several miles away, that wouldn't get built. The wind turbine wouldn't get built on a far-flung hill. Just about to see in the distance. No, I'm not having a wind turbine there. So they got rid of that. They also said, right, we're going to bring in a new deal for renting reform. They also said they're going to bring in a new charter for workers' rights. Brilliant. Good stuff. That was like the first week. But that has totally been overshadowed, I feel, by this winter fuel debacle. And the problem with this is it only takes one person to freeze to death, which happens every winter anyway. I'm sorry to say. I mean, it's a horrible thing, but some people don't put their heating on because they don't feel like they can afford it. They wrap themselves in a blanket and they can't survive. It's awful. And that one person, it won't be one person, it'll be quite a few people, who didn't get their winter fuel allowance, that's going to be on the front cover of all the newspapers. Come December, this person died because of Labour. Their only hope, Labour's only hope at this moment, is climate change. Indeed, that we have a drizzly, wet, warm winter. That's, you know, a bit damp, but not freezing cold, not minus 20. It's a hell of a gamble to take. And, yeah, so this is the first impression that people, voters, the public, are getting of this Labour government. And if you're going to put that on a pedestal and say, this is the most important thing we need to do right now, because we need the money. And the Tories and Refuck and all those people and the newspapers have successfully put this link in people's heads. And what it is, it's between taking money from poor pensioners who will freeze to death and giving it to train drivers who already earn it 60 grand a year. And it's like, it's not how it works at all. Train drivers are paid by the train operating companies, which are by and large private companies. It's, you know, the government was involved in negotiation to try and make sure there were no strikes because, of course, we don't want rail strikes. But it's not like the money's been taken from old people and given to train drivers. But you talk to a lot of Tory voters, Refuck supporters, and they'll tell you that's exactly what it is. So, massive own goal by Labour, and to get started. And it really is one of those things. Like last night, Femi and I, we went to Dawn Butler's Jamaica party at the Camp and Furnace in the Baltic Triangle. It was boss. It was really good. But, you know, talking to Labour activists and Labour supporters, people who were there, they're all a bit put out, to put it mildly, about this. So, the is it the GMB? Well, Unite at least, and I think it's the GMB, are going to be putting in a motion, probably at the end of the conference, to say that they don't want this to happen. Now, look, it's not going to have any binding consequences. It's not going to make Labour stop it, but it doesn't bode well for them. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, you got into power and now the unions aren't supporting you. However, I will point out at this point that Unite supported Brexit, and if pensioners are hundreds of pounds poorer than they would have been had we stayed in the EU, I kind of slightly blame Unite for getting making Lexiteers a thing, or making Lexiteers think that that's an acceptable thing to do to support a flagship Tory policy that will make the poorest people in this country poorer and make the rich people in this country even richer. Make the poor people less free, make the rich people more free. To do what they want, to have lower standards, to put shit in our rivers, to put chemicals on our crops, on our fruit. All these things. Unite supported that. Unite supported Brexit. And I'll never forgive it for that. And, I think it's a shit union for doing that. And so it's kind of tainted in a way. Look, I'm getting around the houses, but essentially what I want to say is the vibe yesterday, and it might have been the incessant rain, it might have been because Femi didn't get in and had to sort of hang around outside like a common prostitute down at the docks. Oh, we are actually down at the docks, so that works. But he got to ambush West Streeting and others, so he did get some good work done. Meanwhile, I was inside in the conference, sort of reporting from inside. I went to another talk as well. I went to one on PR. Which is ironic because the reason why Femi couldn't get in was ostensibly because of his support of PR. I wonder if Owen Jones got in. I don't know. I haven't seen him. The other thing that I went to was about Europe, about closer ties, closer integration with Europe, the EU. Oh, hello. Hello. How you doing, mate? I'm streaming. Femi's naked. He's just getting dressed. He had a late night last night. Do you want to come and join me? You're going to have to come in quite close. So just watch those cables and then sit on that chair. There you go. So make sure you can see yourself on that screen and you're not getting too cut off. There you go. It's Femi.
I'm back to front.
Oh, no. It's going to strip off for you. Look at this. Little morning delight for you. I might swim out to the bus stop, says Plum Duff. Unite didn't advocate for Brexit. Did they not? I thought Unite did. Len McCluskey?
Yeah, Unite, Unison, they were the ones that took ages to actually come out in favour of actually doing something about Brexit properly.
Yeah.
TUC, GMB, they were good.
Yeah.
They hit the ground running quite fast. Didn't really have to struggle with them, but Unite and Unison, especially Len McCluskey, he was a major problem.
He was.
But the issue was...
Problematic scouser. Do you want to come a bit closer?
Yeah, sure.
It's kind of cutting... Actually, you should look there so you can see.
Oh, gotcha. So the members of the unions were never the problem. It was the leadership of the unions.
Yeah.
Like, you kept having Len McCluskey overruling the majority, which wanted to single market, second referendum, that kind of stuff. But Len McCluskey, those people, bad people. I was just saying, like, basically they told people to vote to make poor people poorer, make the rich richer. Yep.
Take away freedoms from the younger generation of working class kids who can now never go and live and work in Europe like they used to be able to.
Yep.
The middle class kids still can because their parents can afford it.
Yep. And the thing is, like, your primary function is to stand up for working class people. That's the whole purpose of any workers' union. And right now, the average household is £1,000 a year poorer because of Brexit.
Yeah.
And it's because the left never properly stood up to Brexit. We allowed Boris Johnson, Theresa May, essentially David Cameron.
It was the Tories' flagship policy. This is what bothers me so much. It was like their thing for years. And it was like the left going, yeah, that's good. Yeah. It's like the left supporting privatisation in the 1980s. You're like, what? What are you doing? Why are you supporting this? Oh, well, it'd be good for the markets. It'd be good for rich people in London.
And it's the same
deregulation of the markets.
It's kind of like we've been saying the same thing for pretty much the past 8 years or so. Like, the main policies of the right, the main Tory policies, the left hasn't really stood up to them because they've been so worried about, what if the Daily Mail gets onto us? Like, Keir Starmer on Israel, etc., on Two Child, on these things that you'd expect the left to have a really strong voice for. Because we've been so scared of what the Daily Mail might say, we can't go too far away from the Tories. They're the safe space. We haven't seen much opposition to that kind of stuff.
The Daily Mail owned by Lord Rothermere, who lives in Bermuda. He comes here, I'm sure, once a year, Christmas Day or something. Go and kill a nanny. I don't know what rich people do. One Angry Pagan, thank you so much for the super chat, mate. That's really kind of you. Stupid as the bar is set so low. Hello, Femi. Hello, Femi. So what? How did it go yesterday? I've spoken a little bit about the fact you couldn't get in because you're persona non grata.
Yes,
I guess
I'm a terrible human being.
They reckon you're going to cause trouble. You're a troublemaker. You're a trouble causer. And so you went and caused some trouble? Just to
I
prove
did.
them wrong?
Like, so as soon as I arrived, within half an hour, I managed to. I wasn't even meaning to bump into anybody. I was going for a coffee, and then I just spotted West Streeting Health Secretary.
I hate it when that happens.
Yeah, you try and
Get out me way, Wes. I'm going to bloody coffee, you dickhead.
And so I was just like, all right, cool. I'm going to make a nuisance of myself immediately. And so I asked him, given that in every election, especially now, a party with a minority of the vote gets a majority of seats in Parliament, meaning that the majority of votes of the country don't actually affect policy because they go to parties that can be overruled by the minority party. Yeah. And so I said, do you believe the majority of British votes should count? And he said, well, our priority is that wasn't a manifesto. We want to focus on the stuff that was in the manifesto before we deal with stuff that isn't in the manifesto. I was like, okay, by doing that, you're still allowing a situation where the majority of British votes don't count. And he said, well, look, it's not a priority. Okay, but surely you want the majority of British votes to count. And his first word out of his mouth was, no. So I was like, okay. And it sounds like it's unfair, like it's a gotcha moment, but like,
It's still a little bit of a gotcha moment.
It's a bit of a gotcha moment.
Was it raining at the time? Was he getting wet?
Yeah. So
you're walking through the rain, you're getting harangued. But here's a point about this, right? You know when this happens to right-wingers, like when the guy from Channel 4 News bothers Nigel Farage walking down the road, or Boris Johnson, and keeps asking the same question. The left love it.
Exactly.
They're like, this is great. More of this, please. And then when you do it to them, they're like, oh, no. We should do a proper thing. We should do a proper sit-down interview. And I'll answer all your questions. But yeah, I mean,
sure.
I'd like to see that, to be honest with you. I mean, you know,
I'd love to.
I've got the kit. Look at all this.
I'd love to interview them properly, but if they don't even let me into conference.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's because they Googled you and they couldn't find any articles, 100 articles that you've written.
Yeah, so they replied saying we reserve the right to reject applications from people that we can't find any evidence of them actually being a working journalist. So I sent them the official Femi pages on the Guardian, the Independent, the Metro, the I newspaper, and then they were like, well, we still reserve the right to refuse you.
Yeah, fair enough. So you're going to try again today?
Oh yeah, I'll be on them again because this kind of censorship should not go.
All right. Well, I'll escape at lunchtime and find you and go grab a coffee, see how you're getting on. Right. But this evening we will be appearing at the Ship and Mitre in Liverpool. I think all the tickets are gone now, but if you want to come along, you probably get in. And we'll be appearing alongside Peter Corr of the National Rejoin March, Mike Galsworthy of the European Movement. We'll also be joined by Louise Brown, who is of North East for Europe, and also Julie Ward, former MEP for the North East. So there's going to be a lot of us around the table. It's a little table. We'll all be crammed in together. It'll be like this, but there'll be 4 other people. It'll be very cosy. But yeah, if you want to come along to that, tickets are free. Just go to the Eventbrite link that is below the video, depending on what you're watching it on. So people are defending, David Smith is saying McCluskey explicitly opposed Brexit. News to me. Probably news to Len McCluskey. The Yorkshireman says we need to get back in ASAP, but I fear we're stuck waiting for the Tories to catch up. I was just talking about what I went to yesterday, and I mentioned the PR thing. It was with Andy Burnham, who made a really good speech, really pushing for PR. And they addressed a lot of the criticisms of PR that people have. So, for instance, but won't it make reform get loads of votes? Well, no, they'll get the same number of votes, but they'll just have more representation in Parliament. And will it split Labour up into little groups? Well, when they introduced PR into New Zealand, Labour were concerned because obviously Labour's, it's like herding cats, really. But in fact, that didn't happen. There were still factions within the Labour Party, but they didn't break off into different parties. It became more of a big tent than it had been in the past. So a lot of the sort of issues that I have with it and other people, my issue, and I know Femi's going to be like, but Graham, doesn't work that way, is Tories getting 40% of the vote, Labour getting 40% of the vote, the Lib Dems getting 20% of the vote, and then the Lib Dems being the kingmakers. So the Lib Dems get to choose who the government is, whether they want a Tory, austerity, right-wing government, or whether they want a socialist Labour government. And last time they had that choice,
They chose wrong, but they're
They
still paying
chose
for it now. Wrong. They're still
poorly.
paying for it now. Like, I mean, that's the thing. If you have, it works for both the big party and the small party. If, say, if the Labour goes into power with Lib Dems and they do bad stuff, that's going to look bad on both of them, and their vote share is going to go down in the next election. And so you're going to end up with other parties taking over and running ahead of them. It's what democracy is about. If they do bad stuff, if these kingmakers make the big party do the wrong thing, they'll be punished for it.
But a government can do a lot of damage in 5 years.
A government can do a lot of damage in 5 years, but we will learn the lessons from that. Like, Lib Dems have not been in power for what have
What's
been.
this we? What, like, have you met people? We've had this discussion, Femi. People voted for the Nazis and they buy Coldplay records. You can't trust people. God damn it.
Reference.
Yeah, super hands. Oh, we got a super chat. We got a £10, £20 super chat. Thank you very much, Ivan. That is very, very kind of you. Digital stroke virtual delegates are essential to move forward to make the Labour Party compatible with 2024 and beyond. Everyone must be included at conferences, including people who are unable to get in person. I agree, Ivan. And accessibility was something that was brought up by one of the new Labour MPs last week in Parliament, where they were saying it's ridiculous. We just have to get up and walk through a lobby. You know, if you're in a wheelchair, what do you do? Like, if you are deaf and you need subtitles for what people are saying, what do you do? Like, there's so many things in Parliament that are set up to discriminate against people, especially if you are a young parent. Good luck with the hours that Parliament keep. And they don't even start the day till 12 o'clock most days. It's like, you know, well, they made it a bit better under New Labour and they brought the schedule forward a bit. But still, if you're it's not a 9-to-5 job. And if you're going to go all the way to London from Skegness or somewhere and then get all the way back, it's difficult to have that family time, which is important. So more leaning into the sort of the digital world would really help.
Yeah.
And being able to do things like remote voting, why not?
Yeah, it's insane that we have a room, the Parliament Commons room, that is too small for all the MPs,
yeah.
But yet still they're supposed to go there rather than voting digitally at home.
Yeah. When they could just stay in their constituency, maybe go to Parliament once a month or, you know, whatever, but they wouldn't have to be going down there all the time. Just think about the transportation costs alone. Don't forget all these politicians, whether they're Labour or Conservative or Lib Dems, they all travel first class on the train, which mile for mile is more expensive than Concorde. So, you know, there's that. Coldplay coming to Hull. Everyone here is excited, and I don't understand why, says Lucy Willis. Neither do I, my friend. Neither do I. Parliament is antiquated. Introduce electronic voting. There's a lot of little reforms that they could make. Well, you know, they would mount up to being big reforms, but there's a lot of reforms they could make, which would really improve things. Anyway, so after the PR thing, I went to the European thing, and there was 8 speakers, including Emily Thornberry was speaking, and the guy whose name I've forgotten the name of, so I'm just going to skip that. Nick Simmons. And also, it was chaired by Stella Creasy, who you've had a running with, haven't you? We don't talk about that.
We won't talk about that.
But I asked Stella at the end of the talk, I said, look, just a really quick question. How about some Brexit impact studies, or proper Brexit impact study, which is something that Uncle Phil has been calling for a long time. And she just kind of dismissed me. She just went, "Oh well, you know, that's not," and just that was it. Do you know what I mean? It was a bit kind of like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, I think there's a bit too much of an attitude of let's leave the past in the past, which, yes, I understand. All that matters is looking forward. We should do what is required to move forward. But given that we are very, very aware that Brexit is one of the things that is making us poorer in the future, we know that all the estimates show that it's going to take 4% of our economy long term. We know that the Bank of England says that it's taking £1,000 a year from every household. Given that we have a cost of living crisis, if we actually care about the here and now and prioritise the here and now over 2016, we would do whatever it takes to improve the cost of living crisis, which would mean during the single market as soon as possible. Now, as far as what's in the past, it's important to see exactly what Brexit has done so we know how much benefit it would be to undo it.
Exactly. So a Brexit impact assessment, but this is something that I should have asked Emily Thornberry, but she got up before the end. So she walked past me, I was like, but I was on the front row. I couldn't really just follow her. And I also wanted to give out flyers for the show the show tonight. We're putting on a show. Me and Femi are going to sing. I'm not going to sing. I can't sing. One Angry Pagan, thank you very much for the super chat. Russian ammo dump exploded 1,000 meters inside Russia. Able to be seen from space. Did you see this? Did you see this footage?
I didn't see that.
It's like a mushroom cloud, mate. It was like a proper mushroom cloud because it was an ammo dump. Went up. I hope Ukraine is not ignored at conference as well as the eco policy we need. Ukraine's not being ignored. It's been mentioned a few times already that I've heard. So I think that support for Ukraine. David Lammy talked about it in his speech yesterday. I think that's going to be something that is very much on Labour's agenda. Darren Christian, you can't trust people. Long live the monarchy of ginger. Hurrah. Well, I wanted to be the grand bomber of ginger because in the ancient African kingdom of Gingiro, the leader was called the bomber. And it was a bit like Black Panther in that the leader was chosen after the old one died, not by hereditary right, but by having a sports competition. It was essentially like the Olympics, and whoever ran fastest and climbed highest and do all that stuff became the new leader. How cool is that? Anyway, so we got to Panama, and it was like, I am the bomber of Gingiro, and there was a problem with this. First of all, J's are pronounced H in Spanish. Secondly, bomber in Spanish means water pump. So it wasn't as sexy as I thought it was going to be. Anyway, I digress. You can't trust people, indeed. Darren, thank you very much for the super chat. That's really kind. Yorkshireman saying, I saw the ammo dump explosion, but wasn't sure it was real. It's a good win for Ukraine. It looked like something from a movie. It was insane.
So I'm seeing agree with Femi completely, but the problem now is Starmer is terrified of losing the red wall and the red tops. So here's the issue. The whole purpose of being scared of voters, etc., or scared of losing voters, is so that you can get into power and make the change that you need to do. If you get into power, you have a historic huge majority, and you still don't do the right things, then you just want power for power's sake. It's just, if you're still scared of losing voters is the reason not to do anything, you prioritize winning elections over actually helping people.
But then you can't help people unless you win those elections.
But if you've already won the election, now's the time to actually say, and this is the thing, like, they keep using
Just come a little bit closer,
sorry.
you kind of get cut off.
We keep seeing them do right-wing rhetoric, etc. Your job, if you genuinely believe in progressive values and left-wing policies, your job is to implement them and show people left-wing policies will help you. That's what you get into power to do. That's how you win the argument. If you still keep doing sort of left-wing things whilst also saying some pretty right-wing things, then people aren't going to believe that those left-wing things are actually helping them. Well, you undermine yourself.
The big one for this is migration. We need to be making a positive case for migration in this country, and Labour aren't. Labour are like, oh, we're going to clamp down on the people smugglers, we're going to deal with this. It's a migration crisis. It's not a migration crisis because we need migration. It's like saying we've got a food crisis. Oh God, is there not enough food? No, there's too much of it. Okay, why is that a problem? Well, people might have more food than somebody else. I'm like, as long as everyone gets enough food, is that not a good thing? But the idea that we should be shying away from the fact that we need people to come to this country. It is simple as that. Aging population, fertility rate of 1.4. It needs to be 2.1 in order to repopulate this country. Our population will be going down, and it will be top heavy with the boomers, obviously, needing more hospital care, needing more care, costing the taxpayer a lot more money, and not being able to work. No offense to boomers, I'm just saying that's what happens to all of us once we get old. So I want them to be making, and some of the people I spoke to, like the activists, were saying this, but the politicians are like, no, we've got to toe that line, and they're towing the line of the Mail and the scum newspaper owned by people who don't live here.
And that's why some of the rhetoric, I'm going to be talking about this soon, like some of the stuff that has been said to get them into power, we can have an argument about whether or not they need to do it, but the fact is it has had consequences.
Yeah.
If it's Starmer, like when he went on TV and he said that because the Sun has endorsed him, that's proof that he's back in the service of working people. That implies that the Sun is the voice of working people, and people should listen to them on issues like that. When he says stuff, whenever he's asked about asylum seekers and safe and legal routes, he immediately pivots to, oh, we're going to smash the gangs, constantly linking immigration and asylum to crime, rather than talking about people who are in need. When he talks about immigration, he talks about controlling the borders and keeping the streets safe. Again, linking immigration to crime. And it is because that narrative has been linking immigration to crime that you then get things like the riots you've seen on the streets, where people think, oh, this crime happened, it's because of immigration, even though the guy was born here.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about this yesterday. If something bad happens to you in life, it's generally someone that you know. And the few cases where a stranger goes up to another stranger and attacks them, it's usually racially motivated, or because of their sexuality, or because they're trans, or because they're different in some way. And obviously we can't have that, because what, do we still live in a playground from the 1950s? I mean, what society do we want to build here? But I want to pick up on something that you said there about the sun being the voice of the people. I don't think that Starmer thinks that. I mean, he might do, but I think that would be an incredibly naive thing to think. What I think he's getting at in that is that, and this is a discussion, a rather heated discussion I had with an old friend of mine who writes a column for The Sun now. And I said, why the hell are you writing for The Sun? And he said, because the people who I'm giving advice to, he gives legal advice, can't afford a lawyer. All the citizens' advice bureaus have been shut down by the Tories. Not all of them, but, you know, effectively that has been cut so much. Legal aid has been cut to the bone. So if you're just a working person, you can't afford to consult a lawyer to find out what your options are in any given situation. And he said, look, a lot of working class people read The Sun. I know you hate it. I know you wish it didn't exist. And it doesn't in Liverpool. Hey. But yeah.
But that's the thing. It's like with when I say the Daily Mail isn't just right-wing propaganda. It's also entertainment. It's sport. It's TV and stuff.
Yeah.
But the stuff that you could say is good stuff acts as a spoonful of sugar to help the hate go down. And so if you have stuff that is actually useful, like, for example, legal advice, and you put it in The Sun, that kind of helps make The Sun seem more legitimate.
Yeah.
When you say that because The Sun supports us, that means we're back in the service of working people, that implies The Sun is a legitimate voice. Now, you could have a conversation about, well, people are reading The Sun, therefore you've got to reach them somehow, but you're still legitimizing it. You're not going to solve this problem if you keep legitimizing The Sun.
Yeah. I mean, you could argue that it's legitimate the people who read The Sun and saying you're not scum, you're not deplorables. And this is a problem. I mean, across the country at the moment, we've got a problem with white youth who are being radicalised by the likes of Andrew Tate or Farage and others. And they feel like all this stuff, all this stuff goes to migrants, goes to people coming here. Asylum seekers get put up in a hotel. Now, you imagine you're growing up in North Liverpool, the cold water flat. You know, there's no heating. You're freezing your ass off. And then you see an asylum family, and it's obviously put all over the news, because of course it is by the right-wing media, who are getting, you know, they're warm, they're getting food. Why am I hungry in my own country? And the issue, it's not like we need to stop doing that for asylum seekers. Well, we need to allow them to work. That would help and speed up the applications, the process, so it doesn't take years for them to actually find out if they get asylum or not. But it's to bring up the working class kids to make sure that they feel like they get the same opportunities. But those opportunities have just been taken away, chipped away by the Tories.
But yeah, so here's the thing, like that narrative of if you're working class, if you're struggling in poverty, and then you see somebody moving down the road who is from another country, and then because you know there's not much in your area to go around, you see them as the problem. That is a human reaction, but it is the responsibility of government to point the finger at where the finger should be pointed, which is the people that actually have the money. The UK has like the fourth highest level of financial inequality in Europe. Some of the highest levels of financial inequality in the Western world. We're one of the biggest economies in the world. We have the resources for things to go around fairly, and so that everybody can be pulled out of poverty. Yeah. The problem is not the other working class people that is next down the road. The problem is the people making 10, 15, 20, 100 times what you're making every year.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I mean, the rich have got richer under the Tories, like ridiculously so. I mean, COVID, the billionaires of this country, like doubled. Yep. In the time that we had COVID, the number of people who own £1 billion, more than $1 billion, which is more than anyone could spend in their lifetime. Like, that is ridiculous amount of money. And it's just feeding this inequality. And they're not like these great philanthropists of old, you know, building Port Sunlight or Bourneville or something. They're not doing that. They don't care. They don't care about the working people. They're just plebs to them. Oh, you're getting a call. Femi, you're on the internet. That's what we're saying.
Gotta go.
Oh, he's got to go.
GP doctor.
Okay, all right. Good luck. Right, so One Angry Pagan, thank you very much for the super chat, mate. To be fair, Starmer explicitly said he wouldn't be ideological when he took office. Still not sure how I feel about that, but he did say it's a mistake itself. Thanks for the super chat, One Angry Pagan. There were a lot of things that Labour have said in the last, particularly Starmer and Reeves have said in the last couple of months that they just didn't need to say. That's my issue with it. It's not that, I've got this huge big problem with Labour being in power. I don't have an ideological problem with Labour overall. I voted for them. I wanted them to win. I was promoting tactical voting because I wanted as many Tories out as possible. That worked a treat. We've only got 121 Tory MPs now. Hurrah. But I was happy to see Greens win. I was happy to see the SNP win. I was happy to see Plaid Cymru and the Lib Dems win in seats, as long as it meant there were no Tories winning. In fact, Wales now is completely Tory-free. Like, there are no Tory MPs in the whole country of Wales, which is wonderful and something that I feel like people in England should aspire to. This channel, as someone said, is it's not a propaganda channel for Labour. We're not, and especially Femi's got a lot of beef with Labour, so it's not like we're saying we need to get on board with this. We don't. We need to talk about it, and we need to think critically about what Labour's doing and how it's going to work down the line. And if they are sowing the seeds right now, at the very beginning of this administration, to their defeat in 2029, when people haven't seen their life get better and have lost a grandparent who froze to death because they had the winter fuel payments taken away, you think people are going to forget that? You can do Mickey Mouse stuff at the beginning of an administration and people will forget about it. But stuff like that, people didn't forget Partygate. I guarantee that people who lost someone they loved during Partygate and they couldn't be with them when they died or couldn't go to their funeral, there was no way they were voting for the Tories in this election, unless they've got some serious mental health issues. Like, seriously, I mean, why would you vote for the people who did that to you? I can't even imagine. But yeah, it's... Yeah. Is Graham a Quaker? No, can't build furniture for shit, mate. David Smith says, I find it frustrating that they've acknowledged the size of the black hole, but still ruling out tax rises on the rich, despite them being very popular. David Smith, we don't know yet, and this is another thing that Labour are doing that's quite frustrating. They're going, you've got to wait for the budget to come out. We've got to wait, and we don't know how long we're going to be waiting for this thing. How long are we going to wait for the budget? No one knows. No one knows. Some of us haven't forgotten about the chicken coop. Graham, lol. Scarlett, it's pissing down here, says Billy. It's not raining in Liverpool at the moment, but it's oh no, it is raining. It's spitting. It's not actually pissing down, but it's getting there. The problem is the whole country's tainted, says Lucy. Yeah, by Andrew Taint, who should be in jail. When people say, oh, I'm being cancelled, yeah, I'm like, no, but it would be nice to cancel a few people, wouldn't it? So I'm going to just go over to the papers quickly before we wrap up, because we're obviously massively over time, but, you've had a bumper crop of presenters this morning. So we've got the Daily Telegraph there. Reeves, UK must accept hard times or risk ruin. We've got the Financial Times there. European steel makers press Brussels to tackle a flood of Chinese exports. We've got, we will get your money back. That's from the Mirror, who have used my trick of having words and then they're white and blocky, and then one of the words is in yellow. It's all right, Mirror. You just copy off me. It's fine. I don't mind. And the same picture of Claire Rayner with one of our super lamb bananas who's done out like a clown. I don't know if that's a slice. What newspaper was that? That was the Telegraph, and then it's the Telegraph again. Why are you showing me the Telegraph twice tomorrow's papers today? What are you doing? What are you playing at? You big strange thing. Maybe they changed it. Is there any difference? 1 million people wrongly classed as too sick to work. That sounds like a Telegraph thing to say. No, just 2 copies of the Telegraph. But yeah, look at the subliminal imaging there. They've put Angela Rayner next to a clown. A super lamb banana that's been painted to look like a clown. I hate the Daily Telegraph is possibly the... I mean, obviously the Sun's the worst, but... The Daily Telegraph pretends it's a broadsheet. Broadsheet. Now Rayner hires an £68,000 vanity photographer. This is from the Daily Mail. Deputy PM bills taxpayer for new staff member to burnish her image as Tories demand probe into her New York holiday. I mean, she stayed at a friend's house in New York, and they're like, oh my God, she went on holiday in New York. This is the same party Boris Johnson went on holiday to Mustique, paid for by one of his mates. He was given hundreds of thousands of pounds to decorate his flat in number 10 in this garish way, but he was given the money to do that by one of his friends. He managed to secure a loan of £500,000 that was facilitated. Sorry, £800,000 that was facilitated by one of his friends. Like, I know this is a little bit of whataboutery, but you've got scales here. Obviously, the Daily Mail has an agenda. It hates the Tory, it hates Labour, and wants them to get out of power as soon as possible. And the Daily Mail just living proof here that it is just read by the worst people. Some men do leave their wives for their mistress. I'm living proof, and I'll never regret that I stole him. Anyway, the hidden life of Elizabeth Taylor was explored in The Guardian today. We've also got Labour to investigate 600 million COVID contracts given under the Tories, which we all want to see. We want the money back, and we want the people who took that money in jail. And also we've got, there's a third story on the Mail there, having a dig at Gary Lineker. That's the trifecta, isn't it? You know, women steal men because evil. Rayner, evil. Gary Lineker, evil. Jesus. It's just fear, isn't it? It's just pumping out fear. Oh no, the foreigners are coming and they're gonna take your jobs. They're gonna stab you in the street. They're gonna do this. Oh no, your wife's gonna leave you for another man. Maybe an immigrant. I don't know. Just fear. Always be scared. Always be depressed. Always be sad. Jesus Christ. Got some positive news, please. Anyway, even Labour's union backers want fuel cut to scrap. We were talking about that today. That's on the Daily Express. The future is orange. Make me Prez and I'll sort with Musk. The Trump Mars colony. Yes, please. All the Trump voters go to Mars. That one-way ticket. It's fine by me. You will last 6 months. Reeves urged not to return to austerity as Labour faces winter fuel revolt. Indeed. And then we've got red flags at Labour conference. Hey, see what they've done there? Because the anthem of Labour, which is sung to the tune of Oh Christmas Tree, is the red flag. And it's red flags because, you know, when you say that's a red flag, see what they've done there. Sleaze row overshadows Starmer's victory parade. I don't know if you can really call it sleaze to the same level as the Tories. They haven't broken any rules. And you know, people in positions of power get free stuff all the time. As long as they declare it, I don't really see the problem. They've said they're going to stop it. They're going to stop getting free clothes or whatever. But as long as it's declared, that's the rules. Change the rules, fine. Make it so that you can't take anything from anyone. I'd be happy with that. But as things stand, to point the finger at Labour and go, oh my God, they took all this free stuff, when we've just seen an outgoing Prime Minister who went everywhere in a helicopter, like literally could go to the bloody Aldi down the road in a helicopter, and you're like, can't you just drive or take a train? No, I've got to take a helicopter. Lots of things to do. Ivan, thank you very much for the super chat, my friend. That's very kind of you. The right-wing press and media has nothing but contempt for the public for removing their precious party from power, hence jumping on every insignificant story. Yes, they will make mountains out of molehills. You're absolutely right. But at the same time, we said this before. They even got in. Labour will be held to a higher standard than the Tories ever were. And QED. David Smith, thank you very much for the super chat. I really like the community and variety on this channel, though wondering if you're likely to do more interviews to grow it. Would love to see it rise. Yeah, we started doing the show How We Fix Britain, which was going to be, you know, a range of interviews with people from different backgrounds talking about what we can do to make Britain better. We'll hopefully get back into that maybe on Sunday, but I'm speaking at the National Rejoin March on Saturday, So it just depends how that all works out. But hopefully, might get Mike Galsworthy to talk with us about rejoining the EU. Anyway, so hard red lines, Brexit guarantees continued austerity and higher taxes. The Labour leadership needs to stop being honest with the public. Nick, yeah, I don't want the red lines. I think having red lines is really stupid. It's counterproductive. If I was in charge, I'd say nothing is off the table. That would just be my line. The facts change, so will my minds. That's the way it should be. But Femi's right. They are terrified of the tabloids. They're terrified of Lord Rothermere and Rupert Murdoch and the Barclay brother and the father of the banjoist from Mumford and Sons, who all have this enormous power over the minds of people in this country, especially in England. And it's depressing. I mean, have a look at the Scottish Sun. You damage your eyes if you look into the Sun, but the Scottish Sun is a lot more left-leaning because they know their audience. In Scotland are a lot more left-leaning, and so they'll have sometimes the same story on the front page, but it'll be spun in different ways depending on whether it's the English version or whether it's the Scottish version. It's really interesting. Perhaps Graham should rebrand and call the show Politics Ginge. Because like Politics Joe, and it's politics. That's very good. I like that. Terrified from a party political standpoint, not an economic standpoint. Yeah, you're right, Nick. You're right. We look. I'm a dyed-in-the-wool rejoiner, and I was a Remainer. I did the hard yakka. I organised rallies and marches and events and things like that to try and get people to realise that Brexit wasn't a great idea. But we just didn't have the backing of the Labour Party at the time, and we still don't. We didn't have the backing of the major newspapers and the people who control the media in this country. We still don't. That's got to change. Right. Anyway. That's it. I'm going to go. Got to get back to the conference. Oh, God, it's not looking great out there. Anyway, so please join us tonight if you are in Liverpool or around Liverpool, 7:30 at the Ship and Mitre on Dale Street. We'll be talking about, do all roads lead back to Europe? That's the question we're going to be asking. And it's going to be an informal discussion. We're going to be sitting there in the pub. We're going to be streaming it. So if you want to watch it live on this channel, you can do that. And it will be at the start at 7:30. Or thereabouts, technical difficulties notwithstanding. It should be a lively discussion, and hopefully we'll bring people from the audience in on the chat as well. So please, like I say, join us for that at 7:30 this evening. If you can't make it along in person, come join us online and leave your comments in the chat. I'll have my phone up so I'll be able to see your comments as you are making them. I won't. It'll look like I'm playing Pokemon. I won't be playing Pokemon. I'll be looking at your comments. Okay, so thank you so much for watching from me and Femi, and also thanks for all the wonderful, enlivening chat and the super chats. Always appreciate them. Give us a like on the way out, and until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.